The history of civilization is in many ways linked to the story of the use of metals in antiquity. If we talk about modern metallurgy, it has seen exponential growth since the Industrial Revolution. It is interesting that many modern concepts in metallurgy have their seeds in ancient practices that predate the Industrial Revolution. Metals were extracted and utilized in the past in stages, progressing usually from the use of native metal to those metals which could be smelted easily from ores to those which were more difficult to smelt. The commonly used metals in antiquity include gold, silver, copper, iron, tin, lead, zinc and mercury. Hello and welcome to New India Junction. I am Richa Dwivedi and today we will take a look at the science of metallurgy that India has had a high tradition of for over 7,000 years. Today, some 86 metals are known, with most of them having been discovered in the last 2 centuries. The Rig Veda has widely referred to Hiranya, which is the oldest Sanskrit word for gold. Rig Veda mentioned that the river Sindhu, which is Indus, contains gold, hence the word Hiranyai that was used for the river. Another Rig Veda hymn states that the path of the river Sindhu contains gold and the word used for it is Hiranyavartanihi. The above hymns are some of the earliest indirect references to the alluvial placer gold deposits in India. It is interesting to note that the references for the availability of alluvial placer gold in the river Sindhu are also reported in modern times. Gold obtained from the river Jambu was called Jambudanda and that from the river Ganga was called Gangeya. These were also alluvial placer gold. The Pali text Anguttara Nikaya narrated the process of the recovery of gold dust or particles from alluvial placer gold deposits in allegorical form. The first evidence of metal in the Indian subcontinent comes from Mehergarh in Baluchistan, where a small copper bead was dated back to about 6000 BCE. It is however thought to have been native copper, not the smelted metal extracted from ore. Archaeological studies reveal that iron working in India may have begun as early as 1800 BCE and that by the early 13th century BCE, iron smelting was definitely practiced on a large scale. The Rig Veda refers to ayas, which probably means bronze or copper rather than iron. The later Vedic texts mention Krishanyas, which refers to iron. A Roman historian, Quintius Curtius, recorded that among the gifts that Alexander received from Porus of Takshashila in 326 BCE, there was a large quantity of Wood's steel. Edrizi, a 12th century Arab wrote, and I quote, "The Hindus excel in the manufacture of iron and in the preparations of those ingredients along with which it is fused to obtain that kind of soft iron which is usually styled Indian steel or Hindia. They also have workshops wherein are forged the most famous sabers in the world. It is not possible to find anything to surpass the edge that you get from Indian steel, which is called Al-Hadid Al-Hindi." Now, let's talk about the process. From ancient to medieval times, there have been several accounts of how various metals were processed. Carbon dating has revealed that some zinc mines at Zawar in Rajasthan were operational as early as the 4th or 3rd century BCE. The zinc distillation technique was developed around 900 Christian era at Zawar. Zinc was distilled in retorts maintained at a temperature of 1150 to 12,000 degrees centigrade. From the debris of spent retorts, it is estimated that 1 lakh tons of zinc was produced in Zawar during the 13th to 18th century. This signifies an outstanding level of industrial production in the medieval period. During and after the Harappan civilization, a copper Horde culture of still unclear authorship produced massive quantities of copper tools in central and northern India. Later, in the classical age, copper bronze smiths supplied countless pieces of art. One beaming example of this would be the massive statue of the Buddha made between 500 and 700 Christian era in Sultanganj, Bhagalpur district of Bihar. At 2.3 meter high, 1 meter wide and weighing over 500 kilograms, it was made by the same lost wax technique that Harappans used 3 millenniums earlier. Unfortunately, this masterpiece is now housed in the Birmingham Museum in the United Kingdom. While the Indus civilization belonged to the Bronze Age, the Ganges civilization that followed emerged in 1000 BCE, belonged to the Iron Age. But recent excavations in central parts of the Ganges Valley and in the eastern Vindhya hills have shown that iron was produced there possibly as early as in 1800 BCE. The beginnings of copper, bronze and iron technologies in India correspond broadly with those in Asia Minor, which is modern-day Turkey, and the Caucasus, but were an independent development, which means the techniques were 100% indigenous. India had marveled in the production of high-quality iron. It is evident from the fact that the extremely high-quality Woods steel produced in South India from about 300 BCE was globally in demand for its toughness. Woods steel was manufactured by carburizing, which is surface hardening iron under controlled conditions. Exported from the Deccan all the way to Syria, it was shaped there into Damascus swords, renowned for their sharpness and toughness. No wonder the Indian Woods steel was called the wonder material of the Orient. In fact, from the armories of the Nizams of Hyderabad to those of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Rajputs and the Marathas, Woods weapons had pride of place. The discussion on metallurgy will be incomplete if we don't talk about the 1600 years old iron pillar in Delhi, which brings us to the second advanced type of iron made in India. Ever wondered how, despite dramatic weather conditions, the iron pillar made of wrought iron fails to catch rust? Well, for years, numerous experts from India and around the world had been trying to unearth the reason behind it. Only recently, its rust-resistant properties were explained by R. Balasubramaniam, where he decoded that due to the presence of phosphorus in the iron combined with oxygen from the air, contributes to the formation of a thin, protective, passive coating on the surface, which gets reconstituted if damaged by scratching. Isn't it wonderful that even 1600 years ago, innovation drove the society and Indian blacksmiths, through patient trial and error, were able to select the right type of iron ore and process it in the right way for such monumental pillars? Coming to gold, India has the distinction that the deepest ancient mines in the world for gold come from the Musky region of Karnataka, which carbon dates from the mid-1st millennium BCE. Professor R.K. Dubey has produced literary evidence that the ants' gold referred to in the epic Mahabharata must have been actually produced by ants, if the size of the gold powder is any indication. There was a tradition of copper production in India as well. Copper ore was pounded, made into balls with cow dung, roasted and then smelted in a closed furnace and refined in an open charcoal fire. Many bronze figurines of humans and animals have been unearthed from Harappan sites. Those figurines were cast by the lost wax process. The initial model was made of wax, then thickly coated with clay. Once fired, which caused the wax to melt away, the clay hardened into a mold, into which molten bronze was later poured. Mercury is a metal that has been of great alchemical importance in ancient times. Mercury is a volatile metal that is easily produced by heating cinnabar, followed by downward distillation of the mercury vapor. Some of the earliest literary references to the use of mercury distillation come from Indian treatises such as the Arthashastra of Kautilya, dating from the late 1st millennium BCE onwards. Some evidence for mercury distillation is reported from the ancient Roman world. In the Indian tradition, people with expertise in technical disciplines were highly regarded. This is reflected in a hymn of Atharva Ved, in which Karmar, which is ironsmith or metalsmith in general, has been called Manishi, that is, a wise or learned person. Further, it has been stated in the Kavya Mimansa from the 10th century AD that goldsmith, ironsmith and similar other people should also be invited by kings in the Kavya Pariksa Sabha, that is, literary meetings organized to judge the scholarship of poets. Metal technology, for that matter, all the other technologies are human creations, shaped historically by context. The mention of complex metallurgy processes, techniques in our knowledge texts illustrate how ancient Indians solved metallurgical challenges that not only helped in the development of Indian metallurgy but also fueled scientific temper and innovation in the people of those times. So that was all on India, that is Bharat. Do let us know in the comments below if you found this video insightful. Until next time, this is Richa signing off. Dhanyavad and Namaste.